Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome again to my NPTEL course, Role of Craft and Technology in Interior Architecture. Today we will be talking about Module 8. So, Module 8 talks about establishing the importance of documenting interior architecture in terms of materials, tools and techniques, because they are very crucial and very important part of making a space, creating interior architecture. We will be talking about this creation and materials, tools and techniques through the examples, and towards the end there is a list of reference that will be useful. I would like to begin by quoting Richard Sennett, who is the author of the very famous book The Craftsman. Richard Sennett says, "The craftsman's consciousness of materials appears in the long history of making bricks, a history that stretches from ancient Mesopotamia to our own time, a history that shows the way anonymous workers can leave traces of themselves in inanimate things." Now this kind of sums up the intention and purpose behind this module, because there is a clear importance, there is a clear emphasis on understanding the anonymous workers and the craft persons who through their knowledge of materials, tools, techniques and ingenious skills have contributed to the making of varied built and unbuilt forms. So that's what Richard Sennett emphasizes, and that's what celebrating and glorifying the skills, knowledge of materials, tools and techniques of the craft persons and workers is all about. And we will try to understand this further through a specific case of Radhaswami Samadh. It is in Agra. So here we see this building, a huge magnanimous building. It's called Radhaswami Samadh. It is constructed by the Radhaswami group. It resonates with their philosophy, and it's a very interesting building. It is being constructed since more than 110 years, and it still continues to be made. And this building I find as an exemplary illustration where there is a celebration of materials, tools, techniques, and when we go through this building we will see the drawings and other details. We will see exquisite construction details. There are a lot of interesting techniques, stone carving, stone inlay, there is filigree work that we see in this building. So it's a gamut of space making, materials, tools, techniques, ingenious skills, and it just kinds of packages everything about which we have been discussing in this module and will also talk about in the next modules. This is the work that I did for my postgraduate dissertation at CEPT University in Ahmedabad. Now it is also converted into a book, and we will be discussing this specific case in detail to understand this module. So the documentation, when I say the documentation of the interior architecture, the materials, tools and techniques, it was done in varied stages which were quite extensive in their own ways. So stage 1 concentrated on the fieldwork and documentation, which was further divided into 3 parts. So the documentation of narratives and the stories were also done. What are the kind of legends, the stories which go hand in hand during the construction of this built form, and the stories which are related to the philosophy of the Radhaswami group and how that philosophy reflects in the built form and the construction. So documentation of those kinds of stories. Second part was the questionnaire and the survey. So varied stakeholders, the devotees, the users, the craft persons, the architect if at all there were any involved, civil engineers, all of them were interviewed, and everyone's perspective was understood, and also the contribution and role, all of them, what role did they play. And then the set of measure drawings was done. Few of these I have already shown in previous modules, the glimpse of them. So this was documented actually for the first time as far as the measure drawings are concerned. Second stage was analyzing the data that was documented on site, and stage 3 was further analyzing all the data and the construction in terms of what are the elements and how is the work distribution done. So, what are the bearing elements, known bearing elements, structural or non-structural, where does the construction begin, from top or from bottom, what are the basic forms and shapes that could be seen in the interior architecture of Radha Swami Samadh. What kind of materials, embellishments, tools, techniques could be seen, could be witnessed, could be learnt through this structure, and what is the entire build form about, what is the metaphysics behind that. Then also elements in terms of time intervals and their variations. So if we see the span of say 100 years, how did the time interval also relate to the making of the building? So like first 25 years, the major stress was on establishing their beliefs and the religion, because this building is a spiritual building and it ideally talks about the philosophy of the Radha Swami group. So I will not get into the details of that, but the initial 25 years they devoted to the establishment and the spread of their belief. Next 25 years also it continued, so there were a lot of their scriptures, the banis and bachans which were written, inlaid and carved, and they also helped in spreading the building their belief systems. Then another 25 years it was talking about the society and environment, like having already established their beliefs, how to contribute back to society, how to talk about the nature and harmony of the people. And last 25 years it also relates to their philosophy. They are talking about the mind and body, like the faith is already established, and in the last 25 years what kind of construction goes into the building that reflects that their philosophy is already established. So in last 25 years what kind of work do they do? Last was sort of technical analysis, where the cone of vision, and if I see through this cone of vision, where is my eye level, and with respect to eye level, where are certain techniques and craft forms placed. If I stand on the ground floor and the dome is say 193 feet above, so can I see what is being carved on the dome standing from here? Those kind of details and technical placements, they were observed, and it was also documented. These are some pictures. This is the elevation. This shows the entire build form over here. It's quite eclectic and very, very magnanimous. This was a model here. It also shows some details. This is the dome from one side and this is from the another side. So just few pictures of the build form. Yeah, this is a very interesting slide because we are talking about documenting interior architecture, materials, tools and techniques. So if we see this sectional elevation over here, right, so this is from here till here to the top of the spire from the ground floor, it is like 193 feet. And like a while ago I was explaining the placement of techniques and material and crafts, considering the cone of vision and from eye level where a certain craft form or a material is placed. Those details can be understood here. So here this is the spire or the finial and this is the dome over here. So if we see this spire, the top, here there is exquisite filigree work. Now this is the picture here, if you can see, this is the filigree work which is done. Filigree work is a very delicate work. It is a metal work, and usually beads and wires or a combination of both is used in this kind of intricate work. So they are either soldered to each other, the wire with the wire or bead with the bead, or the combination of them with the other set of the combination, or they are soldered to another surface. So like here there is this stone dome and on that the gold, there is a gold filigree work which is done. So it's pure gold and it's quite intricate, very exquisite, And even if it is done here at the spire and the top of the dome, and I'm standing here at the ground floor, I can still see it because the scales and proportions and the kind of detailing that has been attempted in the filigree work has been deliberately done in a way that I can at one glance just get to see it, appreciate it. And while I'm just entering the premise of this samadh, I can appreciate the sheer volume and the details right from the main gate all the way coming to close to this building. So those are the kind of sensibilities one needs to develop as an architect or a designer or a craft person, craft entrepreneur. So that filigree work over here, it exists. Then like here I was talking about, here in this part of the dome also filigree work is there. If we see the base of the dome here, in this picture it can be seen. It is called pahadi work. It's the local parlance, they call it pahadi work, and it is a very rich, intricate carving which is quite deep, 5 inches in depth, if we can see from here this section. So it's quite intricate, quite a lot in depth, and again it is at this level, at the base of the dome, and still if I am standing here I can see it because it's quite deep and the motifs and the details are done in such a way that one could appreciate it from their eye level standing at the bottom of the building. Then here if I start, like I was telling in one of the slides, that initially they were focusing more on establishing this faith and spreading it. So if we see the initial 25 years and we focus the ground floor over here, the most intricate of stone carving and stone inlay is found here at the ground floor. It's again intricate at the first floor, and when we go higher and higher, the intricacy is slightly reduced because the faith is already established. They have already made intricate details at the lower levels over here. So here on the third floor the details are less as compared to the ground floor and the first floor. Now the another reason could also be that at the time when the ground floor and first floors were getting constructed, there were master craftspersons who were more skilled and they had tremendous knowledge of carving and inlay compared to the ones who were working here at this level. So there could be several reasons for that. So here this is the picture of the inlay work. Inlay is again a very intricate and detailed technique. So there is this base stone of white color, say here marble. So it is chiseled out, the forms are made, the drawing is made on that. The forms, say this is a rose over here and these are the leaves. So they will be scooped out or chiseled out from the marble, and this red color stone, which here again is a marble, is inserted into that. So this is inlay technique. Here we see the pictures of stone carving, which is also called as santarashi. Some people also call it as nakashi, but nakashi is mostly associated with timber, and here at least for this building all the craft persons identified this craft form as santarashi. So here we see a lotus motif which is volumetric and it's in 3D, it's not a flat motif. It gives all the intricate details. Here again at the column capital and the arches, here we see exquisite carving. So these are all different kinds of techniques which are an integral part of this building, and they create interior architecture which is worth a magical experience, and all that has been possible because of the ingenious skills of the craft persons, their knowledge of materials, the kind of tools that go into the making of it, and also the techniques. How would one do it until and unless they know what are the delicate techniques of doing such kind of artistic expressions, which are also technical when we discuss about the eye level, their placement, and how are they visible to the naked eye standing at the ground floor. So all these details, they go hand in hand and create a magical built form like Radha Swami Samadh. Here there are different kinds of marbles which have been used. So exquisitely talking about stone and the different kinds of stones which have been used over here, completely exploring the material properties of this wonderful material. We see over here pink marble which comes from Makrana. There is this green marble which comes from Baroda, and then there is this white marble which comes from Ambaji. So these are three different kinds of marbles that are seen extensively. There are other few kinds of stones that are also being used here. So white, pink, green, yellow, there are some other shades as well. It is brought from different parts of India, like we just saw. There are also few stones that come from Gwalior and Naushera. Naushera is now in Pakistan. There are some semi-precious stones which are used for the inlay work, and they come from the beds of several rivers. So inlay work has a different set of stones that is being used. We'll see it in the next slides. So again, trying to understand the material properties of stones, the different kinds of stones which are available, what are the different shades of colors which are available in them. So it's not just about taking one stone marble, but it's also exploring the varied shades and variations in the color, and what kind of color scheme, you know, can go for this serene, peaceful, spiritual building. So all those explorations were done in this samadh, and by documenting this, I really think that I became better equipped, you know, for understanding materials, their properties, how could they be explored for different techniques through different tools, and how could they add to the entire experience of space making and living inside them. So just like, you know, the major details of the stones in terms of sizes. Sizes available in the stone when I documented on site, the minimum size was 2 feet by 3 feet by 4 feet, and maximum was 8 feet by 6 feet by 5 feet. So these were like cubic feet, and they were brought from the quarries and then broken down into slabs and then further worked on site. The maximum size of stone in which inlay was possible, that, you know, I came to understand on the site, where a lot of workers and craft persons were doing their job. It was like 9 inches by 4 inches by 6 inches. So these kinds of details, you know, when we try to document a piece of interior architecture, there are several ways of looking at it, you know. So not just space making elements, not just the user experience, but material, what different sizes are they available in, are they constructed in a single monolithic piece, or we break them down and construct them in, you know, parts and then do the joinery, and what kind of techniques go hand in hand, which kind of stone is suited for which kind of technique. Like here, for both stone carving and stone inlay, marble has been used because it excellently supports these two craft forms and techniques. What kind of tools go into the making of it, what is the system of work on site, what is the hierarchy of craft persons or workers or karigars, in what is the system, you know, they work with, what are the kinds of drawings that are given to them. Also, if there is something that they contribute on their own by their memory and by their imagination. So it was a very interesting and very engaging exercise for me, and it really gave me a lot of knowledge about all these things that I am talking about. So we were talking about the inlay. Stones which are used for inlay, so pink and green marble, which is called margaj in local parlance. Then there is akeek and neelam. So they were quite good with inlay, and the inlay karigars told me that these three stones were used throughout the building wherever the inlay work is done. Another few interesting details, like if we see the jali or trellis in this building, there will be some pictures later. So one jali or trellis, that is one unit of the railing and measures 4 feet by 3 feet. It takes 6 months to get fully carved, polished and fitted. So we can see the sheer amount of effort and skills and the time it consumes. So anything which is so exquisite and intricate and beautiful, and it's done with hands, will take its time. So just to understand the sheer amount of time that goes into it, I had asked for these details. Then another thing, like construction of one frame to fit the stone jali itself takes like 2 to 2.5 hours, and capital of a double column. So there are a lot of twin columns in this building. Capital of that twin column we saw in the previous slides, which was like, you know, extensively carved. So capital of a double column with floral carvings, it takes around 6 to 7 months in getting constructed. So a lot of time that goes into the making of it, but the outcome is magical, aesthetic, beautiful, and it requires the contribution of lot of people. I'm going to play a small video where the inlay work is being shown, and this is done by a karigar Pancham ji, who is working for this Samaj since 1985 till the date. So he is doing an inlay work on the wall and he will explain how this is done. क्या नाम है आपका?
पंचम।
पंचम। कितने साल से काम कर रहे हो आप यहाँ? 85 से कर रहे हैं। ये इनले का ही करते हैं। ये जो आप एक पूरा लिख रहे हो उसमें कितना टाइम लग जाता है?
टाइम लगता है।
कितना लग जाता है? ये एक पत्थर पूरा, ये पंक्ति जो पूरे दोहा लिख रहे हो उसमें कितना टाइम लगेगा?
बनाने में कम से कम 8 महीने करीब लग जाएंगे।
8 महीने। कैसे करते हैं शुरू से बताएंगे आप?
शुरू से?
हाँ मतलब
पहले नीचे से उसको डेला होता है ना,
हाँ,
उस डेले को काट के फिर उसमें से पतली पतली पच्चड़ 1-2 फुट की काट के
हाँ।
फिर उसमें से अक्षर कटते हैं नीचे से।
अच्छा, ये आप हकीक पे काम कर रहे हो?
हाँ,
तो
मरगज है, हकीक है।
इस समय हकीक है?
ये तो नहीं, मरगज है, गुलाबी मरगज है।
अच्छा, ये लाल मरगज है।
गुलाबी है, ये हरी वाली ये भी मरगज है।
अच्छा अच्छा। फिर क्या करते हो? काट के
काट के फिर घिसा जाता है, फिर घिसने के बाद में इसमें लगाया जाता है।
तो एक एक लगाते हैं, और लगाते कैसे हैं?
एक टुकड़ा करके लगाते हैं वो। जैसे ये टुकड़ा ये लगा दिया, पहले ये लगाया, फिर ये टुकड़ा ये लगाया, अब ये टुकड़ा लगाया। अब ये एक जो मात्रा है, ये एक टुकड़ा और लगेगा इसमें। इसको
अच्छा, ये मात्रा है ऊपरी।
बनाया है तो इसको 3-4 टुकड़ों में बनाया।
4 टुकड़ों में बनाएंगे। अच्छा, तो इसके लिए अलग फर्मे रहते हैं?
अलग अलग फर्मे काटने पड़ते हैं।
अच्छा, वो आप काटते हो?
पहले एक ही फर्मा काटना पड़ता है, फिर उसमें टुकड़े करके 4 टुकड़ों में बनाना पड़ता है।
अच्छा, ठीक है। और कौन कौन सा औजार यूज़ करते हो?
ये टाँकी करते हैं, बिट वाली और वैसी टाँकी। और उधर तो तोल कटता है ना, तो वो तो कमानी से कटता है उधर नीचे।
अच्छा, तो वो जो तो इनले की वर्कशॉप है?
हाँ, से बन के आता है।
अच्छा, तो यही करने में आपको पूरे 8 महीने लग जाते होंगे?
जी।
तो ये तो आप जब से हो ऐसा ही काम हो रहा है, इसमें तो कोई फ़र्क है नहीं इनले में तो?
अच्छा, कोई ना मशीन आई है ना कोई नहीं, ये तो हाथ से ही कटता है और हाथ से ही लगाते हैं इसमें।
तो आपको कोई रोज़गारी का डर नहीं रहता? ये तो हाथ का ही हुनर है, तो आप सालों साल यहाँ पे काम करने का?
मैं तो जब से आया हूँ यही काम कर रहा हूँ, हाथ से ही करता हूँ।
अच्छा, और आपके कोई पिताजी या दादाजी भी यहाँ पे थे?
मेरा ट्रेनिंग जब करता है।
अच्छा, तो आप कहाँ के हो?
आगरा के ही।
आगरा के ही हैं आप? अच्छा, आपको कितनी तनख्वाह मिलती है अभी? मासिक मिलती है?
43-4350 रुपये मिलता है।
अच्छा, महीने का? और जब शुरू में आए थे 85 में तब?
85 में आया था जब 250 रुपये मिलते थे।
तब 250 रुपये मिलते थे। तो आपको लगता है कि और मिलनी चाहिए कि सही है?
इतना सही तो है नहीं, और मिलना चाहिए।
बढ़ना चाहिए धीरे धीरे।
बढ़ना चाहिए।
हाँ,
बढ़ता है 200 रुपये साल का।
वो लगता है आपको कि और ज़्यादा बढ़ना चाहिए?
पहले परसेंट के हिसाब से बढ़ता था, तो 15% बढ़ता था तो 295 रुपये बढ़ जाते थे। अब वैसे बढ़ाते हैं तो 200 रुपये बढ़ाते हैं।
अच्छा, तो आप ये सिर्फ ये लिखने वाला इनले करते हो या ये डिज़ाइन फूल पत्ती भी करते हो?
फूल पत्ती भी करते हैं, जो नीचे बना हुआ है ये गुलाब का फूल और ये कदम का सामने मेन गेट है,
वो सब आप करते हैं? अच्छा, कुछ आँखों में तकलीफ क्या होती है?
आँखों में कोई तकलीफ नहीं होती।
अच्छा, ठीक है, राधा स्वामी। That video clearly showed how much effort and time goes into the inlay work. Now talking about the stone carvings, because in this building there are a lot of stone carvings also, which are pretty amazing. So if we see, different monuments and temples in India, they have carvings 5 mm, 6 mm, 1 inches deep. But here the stone carvings range in thickness or depth from 1 inches to 5 inches, which is like quite intricate and very detailed. So the pahadi work that I just explained few slides back at the base of the dome, which is at the 4th floor level, that's 5 inches thick and it's very detailed out work. It has several motifs from nature and it is very aesthetic. So it continues for further more height, and even the majestic dome that you see in the marble. So at the base you see the carving and at the dome you see the filigree work. So it's a sheer magic to look at it. And all of this work is done by hands, so see, till 20-25 years ago there were no machines used at all. It was all hand done. And of course now there are a lot of machines that have come into picture and they make the work of the craftspersons easier. So they have been installed, and now the work is done in balance, the work with the hands and machines. It's not that machines have overpowered and the craftsperson's work cannot be sabotaged, because the quality and the intricacy and the customized expression that comes with the craftsperson's work is not possible with the machines. So there's a balance of both and they are trying to achieve it. In fact, the Radhaswamy Trust, which is the caretaker and which under whom the construction is going on, they also have 3 stone workshops. One is in Ambaji, Pindwara, then there is Makrana, Rajasthan, and then there is Agra, which is the largest workshop where this building is situated. So stone construction, stone details, everything that happens on site also has this deep thought of what kind of details, where the workshop should be situated, where the craftspersons work throughout the day, how many hours do they put in. So all those details and documentation, they really enrich our experiences and learning. Here this is explained interestingly, what is the element or process on the left hand side, the different sizes and the work distribution, like stage 3 which was mentioned initially, stage 3 of the documentation. So if we talk about stone carving, so no matter how big is the size of the stone, usually not more than 2 carvers work together, and if the work is very small, then maybe just 1 carver is enough. If we talk about the arch, then if the radius is say 2.5 feet up to 2.5 feet and it's small, then just one karigar or craft person is good enough, and if it is large, say radius 2.5 feet to 5 feet, then more, it will be 2. The column, base and shaft and capital is 1, jali is 1, jali frame is 1. So it's very interesting to understand which element, space making element, or the process or the technique in which the karigar or the craft person or the mason is involved. What are the sizes associated with that element or process, and what is the work distribution. So this is understanding the system of working on site. If we talk about stone inlay, then as many as 4 craft persons can do inlay work at a time, and it's very interesting, like one works in a textile, one karigar starts from one end, the other one starts at the other end, and somewhere they come in the middle and still there is no mismatch. They will match wherever they come at the center. Same way it happens in the stone inlay also. If there is the small size of the stone or the inlay work, 2 feet by 1 feet by 6 inches, 2 to 4 karigars or craft persons are enough. If it is large, 7 feet by 3 feet by 6 inches, it could be 5 to 6 craft persons. The pahadi work that we discussed on the 4th floor, it has again some work distribution. So each piece of stone measures 2.7 feet by 2.5 feet and 1.5 feet, and at least 1 craft person is required per piece. It has some plain work, which is just cutting the stone according to the required size, preparing a framework, giving a mortise and tenon joint in that, and then marking space for carving. So this all comes under plain work. So 1 person is enough per piece. Then the carving happens, pre-erection happens, assembly, final erection and polishing. So all that has specific work distribution mentioned over here. If we see the dome, it has 4 towers which are situated at the corners of the platform. There are 4 minarets, and on top there is plain work. Here also there are different number of pieces of stones, each measuring differently with the specific diameter of the dome, and for this each specific work there are different number of craft persons which are allotted or working on that. So this was a very interesting system to understand how the work is happening there. So just to sum up, where all the stone is used in Radha Swami Samad, and what is the percentage? So if we talk about stone carving, 40% of the total stone is used, inlay 10% and plain stone 50%. So here if we see, almost 50% is the technique of carving and inlay that is occupying this building, and 50% of the total stone is used for other construction purposes and plain work. So this itself is a very interesting piece of information, that how the material and the associated techniques, you know, could be tapped, their potential could be explored, and such an interesting piece of interior architecture can evolve out of that. This is again very useful information. So I am calling this material marble as a wonder material. The stone is wonder material. And when interviewed, you know, why this choice was made for this building, there were several things that came up which the people there told. So first of all, going with the philosophy of Radha Swami Samad, marble is considered pure. You know, it is known for Shuddhata, white color, peace, spirituality. So that was their primary choice for making this building. Now, important details, you know, it is easy to achieve geometry in stone, especially marble. Then there are different colors in which it is available, you know, natural as well as there could be other ways of getting the colors and shades. It does not crack or scatter easily, and there is a possibility of getting wide range of carving and inlay in marble, and work is still done with hands, and there is lot of aesthetic value. So this stone was used in Radha Swami Samad for varied reasons which are quite remarkable in their own ways. This is another data that gives the information about the hierarchy of the craft persons and workers and masons, and what was their work experience, how many old people, how many young people. So a total number of, you know, 135 craft persons were working at the time when I was documenting it. It was in 2009 all the way till 2010. So there are like head masons, then there are stone masons, then there are inlay workers, then the workers who do the stone fitting, there are machine men, there are shutterers and scaffolders, there are laborers. So they have different work profile, and there are like different people from different age groups, and there is also a set of, you know, numbers associated with how many number of people from each of these designations, and how they work hand in hand to create a system. Now talking about different tools which the craft persons use on site and which they have been using for specially carving. The video on inlay explained the tools for inlay, and here there are some pictures that talk about the tools that are used for santarashi. So here if we see this set of tools over here, you know, different pictures, zoom in and zoom out. This is a set of tools which in local parlance they call as narzi. And you know, in the local parlance they also have this unit for measurement which is sooth. Now one sooth is approximately like 3 mm, and there are different kinds of narzis which are available. The smaller size actually is called narzi, and the one which is the bigger size tool is called narza. So they use the combination, permutation and combination of these narzis and narzas for the carving purpose, for the santarashi. And other than that, like, you know, we also discussed that there are few machines that have been introduced. Some machines are used for block cutting, and there are some power tools, hammer, the electronic hammer and the drill machine. Here what is important is, if we see here in these pictures, the machines are used for block cutting only. So that reduces the time that would have been otherwise consumed in, you know, creating the cubic feet blocks out of the quarried stone. But the carving, inlay, pahadi work, filigree, everything has happened, you know, so far it has happened through hands, and it continues to be handwork, which is the most interesting part of this construction in Radha Swami Samad, and which I highly appreciate and respect. That these craft persons who are working with them since ages, and you know, they are fathers and grandfathers have worked, and the generations have continued and they have got employment, and the work is still done with hands very intricately. So that's just the perfect balance of tools and the machines, the handwork and the machine work. Moving ahead, these pictures, this itself is like a story, how they start the carving process, selecting the piece of stone, then using their tools. This is the compass, the prakal, with which they create, a circle, and the basic ruler, pencil, plus the narzi and the narza combination that we saw in the previous slide. So they start making the motif or the design that they want to carve out of the piece of stone. Here the craft person is making the petals of the flower. I should have put the picture of the craft person also. This is done by Prem Singh ji, who is working here since 49 years, and now adding, it was like in 2010, so we can add another 5-6 years to that. So this flower is complete over here, and when I asked him, interestingly, who gives you the drawing, how do you get to make this? He said this is all from our memory or imagination or something that we see surrounding us in the nature. So we don't require any working drawings for the designs that we carve. It is just our own contribution, and we enjoy making our own designs. So here he uses the hammer also. So this entire design is done, and then you see over here how neatly and intricately it is just scooped out and carved from the single piece of stone here in this case. So they have their own designs without any working drawings or any kind of paper that is given to them. Interestingly, here also in the construction process, if we see, they have their own set of designs and own ways of understanding the construction, their own terminology. So if we say the base, the lower part is called as dhasa and the upper part is called as kursi. Shaft is the shaft. Here the column capital they call as bharna, and here the triangular pediment is called as sitara. So they have their own ways of working, they have their own terminology, they have their own ways of expressing and understanding the design, and their own ways of contributing to the entire interior architecture. And on top of that, when we add the techniques and interesting details and exquisite designs, through carving and inlay and other kinds of techniques and art and craft forms, then it creates a unique experience altogether. So towards the end, I'll just talk about two very enlightening quotes. First one is again by Richard Sennett from the book The Craftsman. You can't understand how wine is made simply by drinking lots of it. So just by looking at the end product, one would never understand what's the process that goes into the making of it, what are the different stages, how much time it takes, how many stakeholders are there, and who contribute to the making of that product. So it's very interesting to look at that process, before relishing what the end product is. Another one is by Raphael Moneo. At the Museum of Roman Art, the logic of the forms is very much modern, but in spite of that, the idea of the construction could be related to a historical time. So very interestingly, what he is trying to say is that there could be contemporary expression, the construction could be modern, the interior architecture could have varied typology depending on the era in which it is situated. But instead of, in spite of all this, the kind of details, the idea of construction, maybe the materials or the tools or the techniques which could be used still in contemporary times, it could be very historical. In the sense, historical, it doesn't mean that one has to romanticize about the past and be nostalgic about it, but learning from that process and technique and then trying to integrate within the contemporary milieu. So there are different ways of taking the learnings from the documentation ahead. There are different ways in which there could be tradition and continuity. So documenting interior architecture in terms of these historical ideas, techniques, the kind of skills possessed by the people involved, it could be very enriching. So, our next module is going to focus on traditional knowledge systems and the indigenous materials, tools and techniques, and here are the references. To the already created list, I have added this very important Richard Sennett, The Craftsman, 2009 publication. Thank you. We will meet in the next module.